Good morning. I'm going to talk today about whether the Dharma is more than a psychological tool. And I don't think everybody would give the same answer to that question. So the question for me comes out of one that is asked by people that come along to the Buddhist Center. It's a very common question. Is Buddhism a religion or not? Is it a religion or not? So I think you can certainly be a Buddhist and practice Buddhism without seeing it as a religion. But personally, for me, it is a religion. So what is a religion? I think for most people, it probably brings to mind a belief in a God. And of course, Buddhism does not have that. It's not a theistic religion. So what sort of religion is it? Well, I'll come to that later. But first of all, as a psychological tool, which of course, being a psychologist myself, I would say it's a very useful psychological tool. And mindfulness has infiltrated, of course, everywhere nowadays. We've all heard of mindfulness, probably practiced mindfulness as well. And so what is mindfulness good for? Well, it's definitely helpful if we're depressed or anxious. It's helpful for developing our memory, our concentration, our sense of contentment. So mindfulness in itself can do a lot for us. And today I'm noticing that even metta or loving kindness has been recognized as being quite essential as well to warm up mindfulness. So mindfulness on its own can be a bit detached and cold. It's a great technique, but actually, outside of a religious context or a spiritual context, let's not call it religious. Outside of a spiritual context, it can be a bit cold. A useful technique, but with limitations. So, yeah, I think even in the secular world, people are recognizing that, So the other practice that's very common, taken from Buddhism, is the practice of loving kindness, which warms up mindfulness. So mindfulness is not a detached kind of awareness. And all meditation, we could say, is awareness. It's basically developing our awareness. So how does that relate to spiritual practice? Well, Buddhism as a spiritual practice, or, I'll even stretch it and say as a religion, is that there's the option, if you like, because it is an option, you can practice without this element to it, but it offers this option of tuning into the transcendental, for want of a better phrase, of opening up channels that offer explanations for why we suffer and offer an alternative. So, of course, that alternative is not something that's easily won, that's easily gained. In Buddhism, it's sometimes referred to as crossing to the other shore. And there's an image of ourselves in a little boat, rowing against the tide of all the difficulties in our life, the tide of all our negative states of mind that we have to put some energy into freeing ourselves from. But then Buddhism says there's a point which is called stream entry. So this idea of stream entry in a way fits in very well with this image of us in a little boat trying to cross this river. So, we're crossing the river and we're in the middle of the river, and we've been working hard against the waves and the torrent of water that's pouring down this river. But we get to a point where we've gone beyond the difficult stage where our oars are working very hard. And suddenly it seems that the tide is actually helping us. The waves are helping us, and we enter what's called the stream. We enter the stream, and then things become easier. So that's said to be a point within Buddhist practice where until then it's a lot of work, and it's not like that work completely disappears, but it's more like we enter a place, a state, a time, which is a bit outside of time really, where things become much easier, where actually we are assured, we're told, of enlightenment. Now, I'm not going to speculate what enlightenment is, other than the fact that I have the sense that it's total freedom from all our negative states of mind. And personally, I do believe that some people have reached that point where they don't have any kind of preferences, angst going on within them, that actually they are in a very peaceful state, that it's very difficult to know that state for us because that's not what we experience. So Buddhism tells us that there is a state beyond suffering. And we know, actually, even at a very mundane level, we know how we create our own suffering. We know that some suffering cannot be avoided. By that I mean pain, really, the pain of being alive, the pain of having a body. But a lot of our pain is because we have preferences, because we are evaluating all the time, because we feel separate from other people, because we want to be loved, because we don't know how to love ourselves. The list is endless. And if we practice enough, I think we become confident, we start having faith that actually we can start removing veils really, of unhappiness in ourselves that we are causing ourselves. It's not because of our circumstances. It's not because of anything outside ourselves, but because of what we do with our own mind. So that's very interesting. I think once we come to that point, that's where Buddhism, I believe, tips in to being a spiritual path, being a religion even. So religions, I would have said that any religion worth its weight answers the question of why do we suffer, how do we suffer, and is there an end to suffering, and offers an end to suffering, without it being just wishful thinking, because that's no good, trying to persuade ourselves. It's got to come from our experience. And if our experience over years is that we start understanding how we cause our suffering, and we find ways to reduce it by changing our habits, changing our conditioning, facing our conditioning and understanding it more deeply, then I think we do move into a realm that you could call transcendental. And by that I just simply mean beyond the mundane, beyond the material world. So that's a few words about that subject, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.